Joining me now for more on security in Kenya and around the world is Mauro. He's the National Security Analyst at the Clarion Project. And Ryan, welcome, joining us from New York, I might add. Let's take a step back. In Kenya, there was the terrible, gruesome bombing of the U.S. Embassy in 1998. There have been discussions or rumblings that the perpetrators may have operated from Somalia or escaped there. In 2001, there was the missile attack of an Israeli jet in Mombasa, Kenya. Also an attack on a hotel there, perhaps from those operating from Somalia. Somalia, this forgotten, failed state. Just how dangerous is this as far as a breeding ground for al-Shabaab?
Well, Somalia is one of the most dangerous countries on earth right now. And al-Shabaab actually almost came very, very close to taking over the entire country and making it the first country in history to be directly run by al-Qaeda. Because even in Afghanistan, they were harbored by the Taliban. They didn't directly run it. But if they had actually run Somalia, that would have been unprecedented. And so international forces, primarily African forces, went in and they began fighting this terrorist group, which is a branch of al-Qaeda. And that is why they're so angry right now at the Kenyans, because there are so many forces right now in Somalia that are giving them quite the beating.
What can be done from a security standpoint to do something to stop this extremist group, which is linked to al-Qaeda, as you mentioned?
Well, in terms of U.S. policy, the most we could do would be drone strikes, working with individual warlords on the ground that may have a financial interest or a personal grievance against the al-Shabaab terrorists, intelligence gathering, the very basic type of tactics that are already taking place. But this requires an offensive strategy. Countries like Kenya and the United States or China are going to be unable to protect every single vulnerable site. You just can't do it. And so that's why you have to be on the offensive against these groups and try to make them as disorganized as possible, as minimal in their power as possible. And it also requires going after any government that gives them aid, whether it's the Iranian government, the Sudanese government, as our indications of, or as has been most confirmed, the Eritrean government, which the UN says is sponsoring al-Shabaab and is helping them carry out attacks like these.
What about Kenya? What can Kenya do? I mean, I've cited some of the issues that have happened there in terms of terrorist attacks. What should they be doing?
Al-Shabaab is attacking them because they're being successful. And so, if anything, they should redouble their efforts to kick al-Shabaab out of Somalia and basically keep doing what they're doing. They have to crack down on the illegal sugar trade, the illegal charcoal trade that continues to fund al-Shabaab, and they have to confront the Eritrean government right now and pressure the United States and governments around the world to label that government as a state sponsor of terrorism.
Ryan, if you can, briefly, one quick question. What does this say about the war on terror? There's been so much said about knocking out the bad guys from top to bottom, but we keep seeing episodes like this.
Right, well, that's because it's a misunderstanding of how the terrorist threat has evolved. It's true that in terms of hierarchy, they've suffered some serious defeats, but just because their forces are decentralized doesn't mean that they're less lethal. They're still able to recruit all around the world. In fact, we know that 40 Americans at least have been recruited into al-Shabaab's ranks.
Mauro joining us live from New York. Thank you so much.